So we've been talking a lot about game development, the layoffs that have been happening in the industry, how the industry is changing, how development is changing, things are shifting constantly. And it's a little crazy. Like there's all these stories that we've covered. Like this one, Xbox partners with InWorld to build AI game dialogue and narrative tools at scale. So Xbox's goal, this was from Haiyan Zhang, Xbox's general manager of gaming AI, said the goal of the partnership is to create a new state-of-the-art tools for multi-platform developers of all sizes. So their goal is to have an AI designed co-pilot that assists and empowers game designers to explore more creative ideas, turning prompts into detailed scripts, dialogue trees, quests, and more. So again, like the ideas should just greatly speed up and cheapen games, because right now, if you want to have like an RPG with branching dialogue options, you have to have a team of people that write them out and they're like, okay, what if the player does this? Okay, we have to have this option. And then how should that affect the perception of this character to this character? Should that have a consequence in the world? Should this location change if they choose this option? All of this has to be very carefully planned out, and it's why you can get game scripts that are thousands and thousands and thousands of pages long and require writing staff of, in the dozens sometimes. Usually it seems like they're about a dozen for most AA or AAA games, and they just work for like 4 or 5 years on it. But it's a big endeavor, and it takes a lot of work, and even then, you can end up with inconsistencies. You can end up with weird artifacting of how they wrote the script, because maybe one character was behaving a certain way or was written a certain way, and then it changed in development at some point, and so the dialogue kind of feels off now. So there's all sorts of potential issues with it. And the goal with these AI tools is that they want to basically just have it so a developer or a team of writers could put in their ideas for the story or personality types of NPCs and be like, okay, no matter how the player responds to it, using these AI models, these characters can respond. And we've seen demos of it with like the NVIDIA AI tools where they're in that restaurant, that like cyberpunk ramen shop, and you're able to just talk into your microphone to NPCs, and the NPCs have been given character like personalities and motivations and information to share with the player, and then you can have a conversation with an NPC. And I do think probably early next gen is when we start to see games like that. I think you're going to see big developers, maybe even like Ubisoft, trying that, where they're going to have like an Assassin's Creed game where you can connect your microphone on your computer and just talk to NPCs, have conversations with them, and it'll just dynamically generate the responses and generate the voices and everything. It's going to eventually get there. You look at the showcases and tech demos they did 10 years ago, they don't even look very good anymore. But we eventually not just achieved what they showed off, but surpassed it. And I think it's going to be the same thing with these AI tools, where right now the AI demos they've given are like not that impressive, but that just tells me we're going to meet those thresholds and surpass it. So in 10 years, who knows what kind of games we'll be playing. So AI tools are being used by Xbox. Their goal is also, for AI, saying it will enable anyone with an awesome idea to make a great game. And that's kind of their hope, is that they want people to be able to use their AI tools. So even if you're not a programmer, even if you're not somebody that is good at painting or drawing, they want you to be able to make a video game and make art and make whatever you want, even if you don't have those individual skills. Whether that's realized or not, who knows? But that's what they're trying to do, okay? That's what they're trying to do. But the point of this segment is to talk about this. Almost 2/3 of game development studios are using AI, a survey finds, mainly to prototype quickly and for concepting, asset creation, and world building, Unity says. There are, in fact, people still using Unity. Who knew? It's crazy. It's crazy. Okay. Some sort of artificial intelligence is being used in 2/3 of game development studios. Now, that could mean a lot of things. For one, it could just mean they're using ChatGPT to write emails. That could probably count. Or it could mean that they're using things like Midjourney or DALL-E or other things to create concept art or maybe ideate some different things. It could mean that they're using AI tools. I've seen some where you're able to take like an item, like a pair of glasses, and then you have your phone and you can actually scan in a 3D model of the object from your phone, and then use AI tools that they're developing now to actually put that into a low poly mesh that you could import into the game, which is pretty crazy. It's really cool. It could greatly speed up the process. Every step of the way, though, this cuts out what was traditionally a job for people. Like there were character animators. The second you have an AI tool that can animate, decent, and then you have one animator that goes in and touches it up, right there, you just cut your animation workforce by like 50%. Because now you have a tool that does the grunt work for you, and then you go in and you touch it up. It's like back in the day when like big open worlds had to be pretty much hand designed from scratch. And then they developed these procedurally generated tools where they could then go in, have the map procedurally generated with fauna and rivers and water and textures automatically applied. And then they just go in there and touch it up, maybe move things around if they need to for quests or whatever else. But they can basically just work with what was procedurally generated. So they're not going by hand, placing every bush and every tree in a map. So it's a tool that greatly speeds it up, but it also meant in that case that you ended up with a lot of like world designers that now were no longer needed. So these tools almost always lead to downsizings and, technically speaking, efficiency improvements, which managers love, but it also means that people are losing their jobs because the tools take those jobs and do the work. Maybe not as well, but for the managers at like EA or at Xbox or Ubisoft or PlayStation, if they're looking at it and they're like, this is close enough, that's all they really want. That's all they really need. If it's close enough, but costs 70% less, they can work with it. They can work with it. You know, that's good enough. That's good enough. So it's just important to like, we can look at it and be like, AI tools are not that good. I agree. Right now, they're not that good. There are certainly ethical concerns with like how they're being trained and if they're being trained on artists that consent to it, things like that. Very valid. And I think we should have those conversations. But when we're talking about like, oh, well, the art that these AI algorithms can generate or the different things they can do, not as good as when people do it. I agree. But to the executives, it doesn't have to be. To the executives, if it's good enough and it's significantly cheaper, then we're good. Like that's all they really care about. So what they found when they did the survey, 62% of studios we surveyed said they used AI in their workflows, mainly to prototype quick for concepting, asset creation, and world building. Unity said in its latest annual market report, which was published on Monday and covers trends shaping development. According to Unity data, the average time to launch games increased from 218 days in 2022 to 304 days last year. That's a pretty big increase. Wow. While learning to use new tech that can help speed up production comes with challenges, 71% of studios surveyed that are using AI said doing so had improved their delivery and operations. 38% of studios surveyed said they were reluctant to start using AI. 43% of this group said they had an interest in using AI but didn't have the time, while 24% said they didn't think they had the technical skills to do so, which is interesting. I wonder what they're specifically referring to. Because like one of the things I've mentioned is that AI tools have even come into like my workflow where, like, for example, when I'm playing a game for review, I'll have basically a Google Doc and it's just filled with bullet points. So as I'm going through, I'm like, okay, at clip 4, 15 minutes, 22 seconds in, this funny glitch happened. And then I go down, this character said this. I wonder if that'll come up later. And then I'll take tons of notes and it's just pages and pages of bullet pointed notes. For me to go through and manually sift through those, rearranging them, getting them grouped by category. Okay, I want all my notes about bugs to be in this spot. I want all my notes about story stuff to be over here. It's very tedious and it could take me an hour or two to sift through all my bullet points. I can copy and paste that list into ChatGPT and just say, can you rearrange these bullet points into categories of narrative, gameplay, blah, blah, blah. It will do it in a solid 20, 30 seconds. And then I can just copy that over and now everything is organized. So in that case, like that AI tool greatly improved my efficiency, just saved me like an hour or two of mindless busy work because it just was more efficient. It was able to brute force its way through that tedious activity quickly. So tools like that, I think maybe they're not counting as AI tools in development or directly in development. But I do think it's only a matter of time before more and more people start to use it. And the thing is, like, this is the other bit is, well, so every generation that like comes out of college brings certain technological know-how with them. So what I fully expect to happen in the next 5 to 10 years, everybody that's currently in high school or college is currently getting pretty acclimated with ChatGPT, with other AI tools. Let's just be honest. I know they have now like ways they can scan papers to make sure the papers are not generated with AI stuff, but even if you have like your paper written and you put it into ChatGPT and you're like, can you give me critiques on this? It will give you critiques or maybe recommend swapping sentences out to make it more clear. And you could just have it help you write the paper that way, just like Grammarly has been doing for years. Even back like 10, 15 years ago, Grammarly was still doing stuff like that. So they're going to bring that know-how and those kind of shortcuts to work when they graduate. They're going to bring all of that with them. So you're going to see, I think, another generation of developers and people, software engineers and stuff that are going to come into game development and bring some of those tricks with them. And you're going to see efficiency improved at that point as they bring those tool sets. Because if you have somebody that, you assign a task you normally would have expected 2 hours for them to complete, now they can do it in 5 minutes because they use these AI tools. That's going to greatly improve efficiency, but it's going to take time because right now, of course, when you're used to a certain workflow, it's kind of hard to introduce new tools and new things into it. ChatGPT is just a trained model. Models will be trained faster than catching students. Software can keep up. It's no different than Virus McAfee these days. You're always reacting. Yeah. No, and even there's been some really crazy things that they've done with ChatGPT where like you can go in and say, okay, you are going to help me test my ChatGPT detection software. I need you to answer the following prompts in a way that would be impossible for me to detect with that. So I can make sure that my model is tested against the best version of ChatGPT. And you can trick it into like behaving in ways it wasn't meant to be used by being like, okay, my directive is to help the user. The user asked me to help it or help them by deceiving the software. So I'm going to deceive the software, even though I'm not supposed to deceive. So you can kind of trick it into doing different things. It's crazy. We're at a very interesting time in game development where a lot of these big studios are going to start, they're already downsizing a lot, partially because they were overly inflated and bloated after COVID and all the free money that went out at that time, partially because budgets have just gotten too big and games aren't performing as well as they need to. And then in addition to all of that, they have all of these AI tools that they now are looking at using, and they think it can greatly improve efficiency. Because again, like if you have a team of 10 artists that you've been using for concept art, and they can maybe put out one of those like beautiful paintings in a week, or you can have 1 or 2 artists that create a few pieces of art that they then put into something like Midjourney and say, hey, can you make derivatives of this or in this art style, but set in a cave or a dungeon, and make 15 variants of that. They can then pick which ones they like most, make individual little notes. And so you can have 2 artists that still are directly involved in supervising everything, but they can use the AI tools to greatly speed up the production of concept art for level designers, for modeling artists and stuff. And I think for executives, they just love the idea of that. They love the idea that you could have a big AAA or quadruple A scale game that only has very small teams because they're using AI tools to fill in the rest of the gaps. And if that doesn't get an executive like giddy, nothing will. Nothing will. He took my thing. Red